Welcome to the 15 Minutes with a Farmer podcast from Successful Farming, where quick conversations reveal big truths about agriculture and life. I'm your host, Lisa Faust-Prater. My guest today is Missouri farmer and commercial croplander Drew Cox, whose perspective from each role makes him stronger on both sides of the operation. Drew, thank you so much for joining me on 15 Minutes with a Farmer.
Yeah, good morning. I'm excited for the opportunities.
I first read about you through Missouri Farmers Care, which is just such a great organization. In your profile, you mentioned a scenario that so many folks growing up on farms and ranches experience, where you come to the realization that not every farm can support multiple, households. And was that a conversation you had with your folks, or how did that sort of come about?
Sure. If you're looking at a map of Missouri, Princeton is just right, kind of, if you dropped a pin right in the middle of the northern border, that's kind of where I grew up. And I spent my summers working with my granddad every single year. And so I think even as recently as 10 years ago, whenever I was graduating high school, I always kind of envisioned myself being in that area. And it's something that whenever you're a seventh generation on the family farm, you have this sense of legacy and almost, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but it's just kind of there, right? And so you don't want to be the generation that kind of messes things up. All that being said, my dad has always worked off the farm in a community bank for as long as I can remember. And so despite, I think, being on the farm every summer and that obviously being kind of my favorite thing to do, I always recognized that college and a career path were going to be kind of a necessity. But I didn't really, I guess, consider being 2 hours away and not being able to kind of be on the farm, right? Some of those tough conversations, really, a lot of that has taken place within the last 5 to 6 years. And so my wife and I actually just welcomed the 8th generation with the birth of our first little girl in June. And so my gears have shifted a little bit to, okay, she's not going to maybe grow up on the farm and be there every day and feel this intimate sense of belonging and kind of connection to the farm. So how do I communicate and kind of instill that family legacy in our kids so that it goes on to the 8th generation and hopefully the 9th and the 10th, and we don't lose that connection, right?
I think that pressure is absolutely a fair word to use when you're talking about generational agriculture. But it's nice that there are other ways to be involved and to stay involved than necessarily, being the one who's doing all the hands-on all the time. And
Right.
for your kids too, there are opportunities there. And, maybe they will be one of the ones who jumps back in and takes over the reins of planting and harvesting and making all those decisions and carrying that on. But that there are other ways to stay involved and to still, try to keep that farm intact and keep it going.
There's a cemetery about a mile from my parents' house with a couple gravestones. One is Nathan Cox and the other is Ebenezer Gooden. Nathan's son James and Ebenezer's daughter Amanda get married. It was the Civil War period. James and his new father-in-law go off and serve in the war. James and Amanda decide that Mercer County is going to be home. And so they actually bought the first 80 acres for $725 in March of 1883.
Wow.
And so 142 years later, it's a challenge that I'm not there, but it's absolute privilege to be able to farm those acres still with my wife, parents, and grandparents. We couldn't do what we do without some level of understanding. I mean, my granddad is still very involved, and there's days that he wants to be in the tractor, and there's days that he, when it's cold outside and we're choring, he doesn't mind watching us do the work on a Saturday morning.
Yes.
So, but kind of having that understanding that, hey, this is just what it has to be for the time being.
Yeah.
And, I'm very thankful for, I guess, the cooperation that we've got because these things are never easy. And so it's, you see different families handle things differently. And we're just, blessed to have the opportunities that we do right now. So It's been great.
So you mentioned that your dad worked as a banker in addition to farming, and you are a commercial crop lender for FCS Financial. So that gives you, another way to stay involved in agriculture off of your own farm, just working as an ag lender. So Tell me about how your background in farming helps you with your banking career and vice versa.
The line that I always use is that being a lender makes me a better farmer, but being a farmer makes me a better lender, right? Because, um, you know, we see different perspectives, and I'm able to look at things through a lens that, otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So I now serve a territory here in West Central Missouri and primarily work with row crop producers, but do have some livestock accounts. And so I always thought that I knew what Missouri agriculture was, right? Because I grew up on a crop and cattle farm, and not only didn't I understand what Missouri agriculture was, but I also didn't understand really the intricacies of differing operations and land bases and territories and just different things like that. One of the more rewarding pieces of this career is being able to help keep the next generation on the farm for my customers, and help navigate some of these financial decisions that they've got going. And honestly, I'm so thankful for my career here with Farm Credit because um, having the afforded luxury to have some flexibility and remain active on the farm, even if I do live a couple hours away here, is something that you wouldn't find everywhere. So,
Yeah.
really, I can't imagine something that would fit better as far as a career goes. And luckily, I've just kind of found the niche here that has allowed me the opportunity to stay involved and really kind of prosper, I think, in both capacities. So.
That's great that you have a career with folks who understand that when it's planting or when it's harvest, you might need a minute to
Right.
go home and
Yeah.
help out with that. So tell me what
Yeah.
that season looks like for you. Like,
I'd say we are at home on the farm 2 weekends a month. In the summer we may not quite be there, but here in the fall, definitely we'll be up there more often and helping with harvest. Some people take their vacation days and use them for vacation, and I always joke that I spend a couple days in the combine or the truck, but that's vacation for me too, right?
I want to shift gears for a second and talk about a lot.
It stands for Agricultural Leaders of Tomorrow. And so in Missouri here, that's kind of an 18-month program that for our class consisted of 10 3-day sessions across the state, a week in DC, and then a 2-week international trip. And so kind of the goal of that program is to see how policy is made and different agriculture across the state, and basically shape voices that can be advocates for Missouri agriculture. So that was a tremendous opportunity that I just completed and wrapped up in July. The class actually visited Morocco and Spain and got to visit a fertilizer plant over there in Morocco. But I welcomed our little girl right in the middle of that trip. Unfortunately, that was the one session that I missed, but obviously trade a couple weeks in Morocco for a healthy little girl. So.
Oh, 100%. If there's ever a reason to miss a trip to Morocco, it's that. So,
Right. Yeah.
so what was DC like?
The intent of the DC visit is we go and we talk with all the trade associations and some different groups in DC. So met with Farm Bureau, the cattlemen's, and even have discussions with environmental groups and things like that maybe at surface level you don't think there's much in common, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the big parts of ALOT is we need to broaden our perspective and maybe we don't like talking politics, maybe we don't like working on legislation, but at the same time, I think my biggest takeaway from this program is we have to amplify the voices that are doing good for our communities. And the DC trip, I think, was a lot about exposure to some of the issues and to how things work on the Hill, but also you're getting thrown in the fire a little bit to talk to people that may not see eye to eye with you, and to walk out of those conversations and not be angry or upset, but try to level with the people, because there's obviously some disconnect there that you feel the way you do because of one thing and they feel the way they do because of another. How do you find the common ground? Because there's got to be a solution in there somewhere. One of the unique opportunities we had was to visit the Senate Ag Committee hearing room. And so we met with representatives from both the Democratic and Republican sides. And so have kind of these bipartisan conversations and recognize that the letter in front of somebody's name doesn't represent who they are or
Right.
what they really care about. It was also just a unique look at how policy's made and some of the deliberate conversations that were going on there. And for somebody that has had zero interest in politics prior to that and still doesn't get super fired up about it, it was pretty eye opening and a good experience overall. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned how, being a lender makes you a better farmer and being a farmer makes you a better lender. So what are some of just kind of takeaways from your experience as a lender that you wish more farmers understood?
The thing I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is the operations that I see that have these conversations and allow the next generation to have a voice and be heard and listened to, make some of the mistakes. You can have generations in there that may control the decision making for a period of 10 or 15 years, and then the next generation that may control it for 30, right? And I think whenever you've had power for that long, maybe you don't recognize the fact that you haven't passed the torch to the degree that it was passed to you. On my farm, I experience it. We try some things that I like, but other things that I take back, I'm told no, and there's not a lot of negotiation there, and that's okay because if you're not the one on the farm every day doing the work, you probably shouldn't be the squeakiest wheel either. I think for me, that's the biggest lesson, is just trying to figure out how can I bridge the gap in communication across multiple generations, because we're all family, we all love each other, but the world we grew up in is different, and I don't know how you can always communicate that the best, most effective way, other than trying to understand the other side's perspective. So
Yeah, that's such an important lesson, and that makes me think about our art director at Successful Farming, Matt Strzelecki, who's just a genius, had this beautiful cover some time ago that there was a farmer in his 60s, and then his dad in his 80s is pointing at him and saying, "Your time will come," and
yeah,
the farmer who's in his 60s is like, "What?" And we see that time and time again too, where you know if you don't get the chance to really lead until your retirement age, then
mm-hmm.
you're not really given the chance to sort of implement advancements that you would like to do. And it also makes it more difficult for the generation that follows, because if you're the third generation in that scenario and you're looking to your dad for advice after grandpa's gone, dad doesn't necessarily know because he wasn't given the chance to succeed or fail or make decisions. But
Yeah,
I love also how you talked about how, like, your grandpa's still involved and he'll drive the tractor if he wants, and he doesn't if he wants. And I
yeah,
think that's a good lesson for the older generations, that you can still be involved while, you don't have to completely hand over the keys and walk away. You can still be involved, but give your kids and or grandkids the chance to sort of step up a little while you're still there to guide them. I think that's really valuable.
yeah. It is, and it's an excellent opportunity. For me, I've been fortunate to have been given a little bit of leash, I guess, to make some decisions and have input, and so that's. I mean, it keeps the next generation interested too, right?
Yeah.
You have a lot of these farmers that, if I wanted more responsibility in the workplace, I could probably go to my boss and find ways to become more involved, whether that's internally or externally. But if you're on the farm and you go to the next generation up and you're seeking those opportunities and they're not supportive, it seems like a recipe for burnout. And so that's honestly, I think, out of everything that I see, that's the biggest takeaway. And granted, that's maybe skewed through the lens of a younger generation trying to come into a farming operation too, right? So always cognizant and self aware of the lens that you're looking through. So
Right. Yeah, it is a recipe for burnout, and it also feels like a recipe for financial disaster when you're coming in so late in the game and you don't really have a chance to, plan for retirement or think about a succession plan and all the kinds of things that you need to deal with before you're in your 60s or 70s.
right.
Ideally, you would deal with these things much sooner, and then it's a much easier situation for folks going forward when there's a plan in place, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I love what you said about being a better lender because you're a farmer, and being a better farmer because you're a lender. It's a very symbiotic relationship, and it's great that it's working out so well for you. So, so Drew, congratulations on all your success, and keep up the fantastic work.
Yes, and thank you, Lisa. I appreciate the opportunity to join you today, and for Successful Farming for giving us the platform to kind of share our story too.
Thank you for listening. Open the latest issue of Successful Farming, visit us online at agriculture.com, and subscribe to 15 Minutes with the Farmer so you never miss a chance to connect with the people who feed, clothe, and fuel the world. Until next time, stay rooted, stay resilient, and support your local farmer.